you, or
Does what?
does my eye line does my eye line look weird when I'm looking at you?
No, you're good.
Okay.
I think it's good. All
Kind of from
right.
above.
All right. Well, hello. This is the Green Corn Rebellion show. I'm Gregory. I'm with the amazing Katie Halper, host of the Katie Halper Show and co-host of Useful Idiots with Matt Taibi. Oh wow, this is just too amazing. Thank you for coming on, because
Yeah, of course.
I've been a fan of yours for like a little over 2 years now.
Right.
I think I first saw you on the Jimmy Dore show back in 2017. I'm not sure what it was you were talking about at the time. I can't remember if it was
Let's see. I talked to him about like feminism.
Yes,
and
that's what it was. That's what it
yeah.
was. And because I remember there was that, and then you also did the interview with him about Bill Clinton's
Juanita
rape.
Project. Yeah,
Her.
Juanita Project. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I've been a fan of yours ever since. I listen to your podcast. It's
awesome.
You're great.
Thank you.
Welcome. And thank you. So, I wasn't exactly sure what all we were gonna be able to get to today. I'm not really great at this.
Don't sell yourself so short.
No, I'm 5'4". I'm very short. So.
Oh well, you know what I mean. Yeah. So sell yourself short that way if you want, but you know what I mean. You're right. That's a heightist expression.
Yes. But yeah. So did you have anything that you wanted to talk about in particular? Or
excuse me. Well, this whole thing, let's see what's going on now. This whole thing, I mean, did you see this thing with Brianna Joy Gray and what's his name from what's his name? Jason something? Daily, like those terrible people. Hold on. Well, we could talk about my new podcast.
Yeah. I had a couple of questions written down, but if you want to start talking about Useful Idiots.
No, whatever you want, though, honestly.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about Useful Idiots. I've seen all 3 episodes so far.
Oh, great.
So there's nothing I don't know if I don't know. But if you'd like to talk about that, how did that come together exactly?
Actually, it's interesting. So I write for Paste, and that was where that I wrote this piece about Susan Bordeaux for Paste, which was about kind of feminism and the kind of feminism that sees Hillary Clinton as a feminist and Sanders as an anti-feminist, which is not, the type of feminism that I share, obviously. Yeah. So, sorry, I was just looking for this one thing. I was looking for this piece on Brianna Joy Gray, but we can talk about that later. So stupid. Okay, so you edit this, right?
Kind of.
Kind of? Yeah. Oh, okay, so let's start from the beginning. All right. So, yeah. So how did Useful Idiots start?
Yeah.
I write for Paste, and I wrote this piece about feminism and how certain feminists were blaming millennial women for not voting for Hillary or handing Trump the election, even though that's not true statistically. But also they were it was a response to this woman, Susan Bordeaux, who wrote a book called The Destruction of Hillary Clinton, an excerpt of which was published at The Guardian. And so I wrote it. It was kind of in the form of like an open letter. Mm-hmm. And I found her piece very condescending, and I think she missed a lot. And it represented a lot that's wrong with this neoliberal lean-in pantsuit feminism, in my opinion, where they think that we just take everything for granted that Hillary did. And I mean, I say this all the time, like Hillary has faced sexism and misogyny and double standards. That's true. That doesn't mean that every criticism of her is the result of that or caused by that. In fact, a lot of my criticisms of her are based on feminist critiques, like I don't think it's feminist to be a hawk, which she is.
Yeah.
War is bad for everyone, including women and children. Both two groups she claims to care about a lot. And I think she probably does on some level, but I don't think it ranks very high compared to, other things. And, like I always bring up the example of the Fight for 15 because that's such a perfect example. So you had Sanders supporting that, Clinton not until way later on. And that's, the minimum wage earners for whom the Fight for 15 movement is run. And, it's run by them for them. They are just overwhelmingly women and people of color. Yeah. So if you care about those two groups, and the premise of a lot of the feminist critique of Sanders is that Sanders doesn't care about them and Clinton does. If you care about those two groups, you actually want them to be making more a higher minimum wage, right? Anyway, so that's one thing. And I, there's just a lot of condescension, and I think that a lot of like personal identification with one woman's journey. I see that a lot among certain neoliberal feminists, and I don't think it's politics. I think it's just personal. And hold on one second. The personal is political, but not in certain ways. It's not just political. Your personal experience doesn't trump the larger world's experiences, right? And in fact, that's a problem when your politics begins and ends with your individual relationship with someone, when that's more important than the policies that affect countless less powerful people, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so Hillary did face misogyny, and that also didn't make her the more feminist candidate. Anyway, so I wrote that piece, and I had written something else. My first piece for Paste actually was about the media making fun of Sanders supporters at the convention and how mean they were. They were just like making fun of them and being really dismissive and condescending and belittling and contemptuous. And the guest editor then was Walker Bragman, who writes for Paste. And the editor, the politics section was off. So I worked with Walker. And Walker and I got to know each other. And then Walker was doing some video interviews for Paste. And one of the people he interviewed was Matt Taibi, and Walker very generously asked me to take part in the interview with him, because also I had done a lot of hosting, so I think he wanted me to help host because I have my podcast, so I was did a lot of hosting. Yeah. And so I interviewed him and Matt, and then, I interviewed Matt with him, and I was a big fan of Matt Taibi's before, but I hadn't interviewed him. I had almost interviewed him anyway. So then he and I started talking and, about politics and writing and stuff. And then he asked me to do the podcast with him. And that was, and it finally just started. So, yeah. And it's a podcast and it's also video, which is something else I'm really excited about because I've been wanting to do video because video is so funny. You have expressions and, there's stuff you miss in the audio. And it's a different audience. I think that there's some people who just don't listen to podcasts, but a lot of people watch short videos. We don't have short videos yet. We have to figure out. Anyway, but that's Useful Idiots. And then Matt and I, after meeting each other, we also kind of would we're part of a small group of people, relatively small group of people who have any reach. And of course, Matt Taibi's reach is, I'm not comparing myself to him. He's, a New York Times award-winning, New York Times bestselling author and an award-winning journalist, and he writes for Rolling Stone and writes features for them, and he's written books. And I have a podcast and have written some places, good places, but I'm certainly not a Matt Taibi. But within this, there are not that many of us who have any kind of media presence who are critical of the Russiagate narrative. So we're part of that world also.
Yeah.
Although to be fair, I didn't do the heavy lifting on that at all. I just basically would interview people who did do that. So him, Aaron Mate, Max Blumenthal, Glenn Greenwald. So Yasha Levine, I've since been in touch with. Got to get him on the show. Yeah. So then, and then I did a live show with Struggle Session and Matt Taibi, and that was great too. And I've had Matt on a few times. And we started this a couple weeks ago, and our first guest was Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
And then Jimmy Dore was our
Yeah,
most recent one.
I listened to that one the other day when I was getting ready for school. It's a really good one.
Thanks. We're getting a
yeah.
lot of hate from the usual suspects.
I know, right?
I just got to say something, guys. People being like, oh, useful idiots sounds like the host of the show. You're not being funny or smart. We built that into the title. We already made that joke. Like, there are ways you can dunk on us, and I'm sure you can dunk on us in funny ways, but that's not it. It's just such a dumb joke. It's such a dumb point to make. So, and then a lot of people are making this, very enlightened critique, which is like, shut it down, shut them down. Or, I'm not subscribing to Rolling Stone, or it just shows you how irrelevant Rolling Stone is. It's like, well, if Rolling Stone's irrelevant, why are you commenting on it?
Right.
I mean, yeah, whatever. But the shut it down thing is a very scary thing that we see. I mean, Max Blumenthal faces this a lot. People, will try to shut stuff down. The Syria issue, the way that's discussed is it's just like, if you ask someone what they want to have happen in Syria, like what should be done about Syria, like do you want the U.S. to invade or support some kind of regime change or intervene? They'll often just like refuse to answer that and demand that you condemn someone.
Yeah.
Like I've had people be like, I'll answer that when you condemn Rania Khalek. It's like, well, no, you shouldn't. That also, why is it conditional? This is a big thing. Your entire view of Syria, you talk about Syria all the time. You judge people on Syria all the time. It should be fairly straightforward. I know what I think. I think we should not intervene in Syria, regardless of what you think of Assad.
Yeah. What
do you think? Anyway, so those usual suspects are like, shut it down, and they try to get things shut down. They succeed sometimes. I don't think Rolling Stone's going to pay attention to them, but it's kind of shocking to me that they just so openly are calling for deplatforming without any kind of coherent guidelines for it. They just like really smear people as genocidal or genocide apologists or Holocaust apologists or Assadists. We saw Kamala Harris do that very embarrassingly, I thought, but apparently not, because the rest of the media just parroted her with Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
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 What are you in school for, by the way?
My major is history education. I'm going to become a history teacher and eventually go into politics, maybe. But yeah.
And what city are you in?
I go to school in Edmond, Oklahoma, but I live in Shawnee, Oklahoma.
Okay, cool. I used to teach history.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, a high school history teacher, yeah. And I majored in history, yeah.
Okay, I was gonna ask you that because I couldn't find anywhere where you went to school or anything. Like that.
I went to Wesleyan.
Wesleyan, okay.
Yeah, which is a very liberal place. Yeah.
That's cool. What made you want to major in history?
I've always so I majored in something called College of Letters, which is a special program at Wesleyan. Wesleyan has two special programs. They have College of Social Studies and College of Letters, so CSS and COL. And I did COL, which is Literature, History, and Philosophy. And I would have done history if I hadn't done that, probably. And I don't know. It was a lot of like straight dead white men, but I knew I'd read other people on my own, and I didn't think I would read. I think it's important to know the canon, and it wasn't all that, it wasn't a monolith of straight white dudes who we read, but I think it's important to know the canon, if only to critique it. And I took sociology classes and Latin American history classes and African American literature classes and and stuff like that. But I did want to have I did want to know the kind of the canon.
All right.
Some of which is good, some of which is bad, but yeah.
Yeah.
And we read, the Quran and the Old Testament, the New Testament. Yeah. I think maybe actually we only read the Quran because of the theme of that semester. Anyway.
So what made you get into writing and journalism, and what made you start your show?
My show, I kind of fell into it. I was invited to do the morning show on WBAI, which required me getting up at like 5. It was from 6 to 8 a.m., which was insane. And then I wanted to do my own show, and they gave me my own show. And then I turned that into a podcast also. So I started out doing the radio show and turning it into a podcast. Then I kind of did a podcast and put it on the radio. And now I think I'm doing some kind of combination. So I'll go in and do it live sometimes, or I'll pre-record.
That's
and
cool.
Yeah, so if I fell into that kind of, and then I had like Chapo Trap House on early on, and fairly early on. And I also just like fell into, becoming part of this small world of Bernie, Bernie supporters who were making the case against the Bernie bro narrative, which you did too in a video that I asked you to contribute to, this video that we're going to be releasing soon.
Yeah. All right. So what has influenced your political views like the most?
So I had a very easy transit. I don't get any credit for this because I come from a family which basically has my politics. I went to a socialist summer camp that my mom went to, and my uncle went to, my grandmother went to.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. And I, my dad's side of the family, my dad's uncle died in the Spanish Civil War fighting against Franco. My mom's dad tried to go. He was only 16. He lied and said he was 18. They found out, so they didn't let him go. Then he fought in World War II, very anti-fascist. A lot of activism. My uncle was arrested a lot, and he was did a lot of civil rights stuff and union stuff. My mom's ex-boyfriend, who's a family friend now, was part of this thing called the Fort Hood Three, the first 3 guys to go to jail for refusing to fight in Vietnam. And they were not conscientious objectors. In other words, they are like, well, we would have fought in World War II, but we're not going to fight in this unjust and immoral war. They went to jail for 3 years. So, yeah, I was raised in a very political family. My dad's uncle was blacklisted. He was the head archivist in Geneva for the UN. He was the head archivist for the UN. He had studied history. And he got blacklisted for being a communist. Yeah. My grandfather, I have to write all this stuff down. Before World War II, he climbed a pole outside of the Austrian embassy and ripped down a swastika flag. I have to get the details of that story. And then his older brother, so my mom's uncle, there's a monument to him. I have to find it in Lithuania.
Oh, really?
Because he was part of the anti-Nazi resistance, and I guess he killed the Nazis who killed his parents, and I got to look into that.
That's interesting.
He died. He was killed. He was killed himself. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. All right. Well, let me see here. That's pretty much all the questions I wrote down.
And how long have you been doing this? How did you get into politics? This can be like a mutual interview.
Okay. Well, how I got into politics was so it was my junior year of high school, and it was after I turned 17. So I was trying to decide. This also has to do with why I ended up majoring in history as well. For most of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't know what it was I wanted to major in. So one day I sat down, I was like, okay, so what am I going to do? And then I started thinking about all the different subjects that I'm good with, and history was the best one for me and the one that was most interesting to me. So I decided, okay, I'll major in history, I'll become a history teacher. And then I started getting a little bit more interested in politics, I was always interested in politics. I always followed it. I grew up watching Free Speech TV, Tom Hartman, David Pakman, Democracy Now!, stuff like that. So I always kept up with politics, but that's when I started feeling like, oh, I need to be more active in this. I need to, pay closer attention, be more active. And that's when I started thinking I should possibly run for office. I should get involved within my Democratic Party here in my state. And my senior year, which this is 2015, 2016, I started a Young Democrats chapter at my high school. And it died after I graduated, but still, I started it, and I went to college, and I stayed active. That summer of 2016, I worked on a congressional campaign for a Bernie supporter who ran for Congress out in my district. He
Who is
ended up
that?
losing. His name was Tom Guild. He ended up losing by, what was it, 42 votes in the primary, something like that. There was like a recount and everything. It's
Oh
crazy.
man.
And then let's see here. And then, I've knocked doors for other candidates since then and helped other candidates campaign, all that kind of stuff. Been a lot more focused in state politics. And then then I decided to start the show earlier this year. It's something I've been thinking of for like a year or so. Then I started the show back in May, and I've been doing this and going to school and working, and that's that. And what's influenced my political views was a lot of things. I believe for me, I probably started thinking a little bit about politics when I was like really young, like maybe 4, 5, 6. Like I remember my parents going to vote for the governor's race in like '02 here in Oklahoma. I was like 4, but the guy who was running as the Democrat was Brad Henry, and he was from my hometown, and he was governor for 8 years. And then John Kerry in '04. I remember the Iraq War barely, but I remember it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was bad. I always never liked war. I was always anti-war. Then Obama. I really liked Obama. I was really excited about him. Even in what was it? Like when I was 10 when he was elected, and
Wow,
for
your
my
baby.
yeah, when my birthday came, my 11th birthday, I was in 5th grade when his inauguration happened. So I stayed home that day of his inauguration and watched it on TV with my mom. And I sat down next to the TV when he was talking, and my mom took a picture of it, and then she put it on my birthday cake, which my birthday was like in a couple of weeks after that.
Your birthday
And
or hers?
mine.
Uh-huh.
And she put it on my birthday cake, and I had a Black History themed birthday party that
Oh
year.
my God. Do you have a photo
Yeah.
of it?
I do. I'll have
I
to
want to see
bring
it.
it back out. I'll send it to you later. I have to go
Yeah.
find it. But yeah. Um and I really liked Obama, and then after a few
So
years
you
of
were a
his
real nerd as a kid?
kind of.
I mean, I was. That's really
I
cute though
was
to
also
have a Black History party, a
uh,
Black History themed party.
yeah, and I was also in band too. I played trumpet. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And but yeah, then Obama, he kind of disappointed me a little bit after his first 4 years, but I still wanted him to win in 2012. And
Yeah.
then,
Of course.
and then
Who else was
there
there?
was right. And then there was Bernie. And I would say I never identified necessarily as a socialist until I'd say 2017. But
Yeah.
like I was never like afraid of that word. Like I was
Right.
never like afraid of socialism or communism or anything. When I was growing up. Because most of the time when that word was thrown around from Republicans, it was always a good people or good things. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Oh,
maybe there's something good with the socialist thing.
they
Maybe
really
I don't.
wasted that on calling Obama that. It was
All
a,
right.
it was, they really, what's the expression? They shot themselves in the foot because he wasn't a socialist and they blew
Yeah.
their wad kind of on that.
Yeah. And then but yeah, but Bernie, him running for office, that definitely influenced me a lot whenever I was, 17. He was the first person I
Yeah.
ever voted for, actually,
Oh,
because
wow. Cool.
my birthday was on the cutoff date to be able to vote in the primary here in Oklahoma. So on that day, it was like a Thursday, I think. I don't know. I rushed to the county election board, filled out the form, got registered, and was barely able to vote. So yeah.
Wow. Historic moment.
I know, right?
And are your parents political? Like, did you come from a political family, or did you
no,
discover
but
on your own?
they're. I mean, they vote and they're progressive, but they're not active necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think anyone in my family's really like as into politics as I am. Most of them vote, but other than that, that's pretty
Right.
much it. Yeah.
Did they like Bernie?
Uh some of them do. I need to go chat with some of them about that because I don't think most of them voted in the primary last time. So this time I need to do better about that
Right.
and make sure they go out and vote. And hopefully they vote for Bernie and not, any of the other lackluster
Right.
candidates in the
Right.
But yeah, let's
Yeah,
see
for me,
here.
oh, I cut you off.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, no,
Go ahead.
for me, the Bernie thing was like, and I talked about this with Naomi Klein actually. Like, I've talked about it a lot, but I had an interesting conversation with her when she came on my show, which is that like he was he really exposed a lot of the fault lines kind of, or the fissures among the so-called left, because I always thought that for instance, I operated in a more liberal than left space for a long time because there was just a lot of organizing going on, and I didn't think that there was,
Yeah.
in electoral politics, there wasn't that much choice. And I kind of always assumed that if someone as progressive as Sanders, who was viable, came along, everyone would join him.
Hmm.
And then when people didn't, it was no longer because it wasn't possible or pragmatic, because we knew he was so popular and he actually was polling well against Trump, although people ignored that.
Yeah.
But that's when you discovered, like, oh no, it's not because these people were for pragmatic reasons more centrist. They just actually opposed those ideas. And
Yeah.
once there was an opening to support the more progressive, less centrist guy, more leftist guy, and they didn't, there was like no excuse anymore. So I think that was a real divide.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
noticed that too, because that was my whole thing was I would talk to like some of my teachers at the time at the high school about the primary. I got to find out who the Democrats were, who were teaching, and some of them they were Hillary supporters because they felt like Bernie couldn't win.
Right.
They were like, I like everything he's talking about, but I don't think he
Yeah.
can win. And I was like, I don't know. He's doing better against Trump in the polls than Hillary
Right.
is. And because I remember that was the huge thing too, was that he was actually polling better
I know.
against
Yeah.
Trump than Hillary the whole entire time. And
And no one talked about that in the
yeah,
mainstream or corporate media or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
yeah, and I was able to sway a couple of teachers over, but some of
Okay.
them they couldn't. They just they didn't see it, and then I didn't. Luckily, I wasn't still a student there whenever Trump won, because otherwise I'd
Yeah.
have to like, hey, what were you telling me last year?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, but that was definitely an eye-opening election for sure.
Yeah.
Um, very, very disappointing. Like after 2016, like I was in a way I kind of felt like out of it when it came to politics because I felt like what was it? I can't remember the feeling, the word to describe it, but like I felt very disillusioned with politics for like a little bit in 2017, and it was just like I just ooh, I don't know, it was weird, but
So
that
so
go ahead.
what do you like? Why do you like Sanders? And what
Okay,
do you think of the Bernie bro narrative? I mean, I kind of asked you this for that video, but
yeah.
yeah.
So what I like about Bernie, well, what I like about Bernie is definitely his consistency. That's probably the first thing, but not just his consistency, but his consistency with being right, or at
Right.
least more so right than most people at best. And his policies, they're Medicare for all. I've been for single payer forever because I remember watching the movie Sicko. Remember the Michael Moore
Oh
movie?
yeah, yeah.
And I remember watching that when I was like 9 or 10, 8, somewhere in there. And I was just disgusted by our healthcare system. I was just like, wow, we're allowing that to happen in America. And then on the other side, in Canada, UK, France, they're actually helping their people. So
Right.
that's always been a big issue for me. And Bernie's been the only real viable, strong candidate that's actually put forth a single payer policy that we could actually implement.
Right.
And let's see here. What's another big issue for me? Um, there's the minimum wage. That's another one of my big issues because, especially being working in fast food, like I always tell people, like working in fast food has also radicalized me, like as far as politics goes, because I just don't understand how one could work in fast food and not totally walk out of there being a communist. Like it's
That's
ridiculous.
funny. That's a
Like
great quote.
you're getting paid like 7.25, 8.25, 9.25 for having to deal with so much at one time and all
Right.
this stuff. It's just like it's
And
ridiculous.
then to see, yeah, I
And
cut
then
you off.
not
Yeah.
yeah, and then not being able to actually afford to live. Like I'll speak for my previous job at McDonald's, not my current job, but like at McDonald's, like that was such an eye-opening experience for me getting to work with people who like I didn't work there because I needed to live. I was working there because I needed extra money outside
Right.
of my parents. But like there's these people were working there in order to live and couldn't get by, and people were having breakdowns and stuff like that because it was so like heartbreaking to me to watch.
Yeah.
And the fact that people still don't believe that fast food workers deserve a living wage is just mind blowing to me. And that $15 an hour, I mean, I think it possibly might need to be more, but $15 is at least like,
Right.
the right way to go. So that's another
And then, of
huge.
course, a lot of people will be like, oh, well, minimum wage earners are just like, kids in high school making extra money. So we shouldn't
No.
pay them more.
Yeah,
People
and
say
then
that a lot.
I know, and then everyone at McDonald's I worked with was not in high school. Like everyone
Right.
was at least in their 30s and 40s, if not
Right.
older. And
Yeah.
I only worked with like maybe two high school students the entire time I was
Right.
there.
Right. And then, of
um,
course, this is all so that people at the top can make like an obscene profit, right?
yeah, it's insane. Another reason why I support Bernie is definitely free college because seeing all these kids, including myself, have to go to college and it's have to pay so much in order just to get an education is insane.
Yeah.
It's oof, especially when my parents, like my mom, she's a baby boomer. So whenever she went to college for like a nickel.
Right.
But
Yeah.
like it's just insane. Um but yeah, those are some of my main reasons for supporting Bernie. Also criminal justice reform, that's a big one too. Legalizing marijuana. Um there's so many other reasons, but
Yeah.
those are some of the main ones for me. And the Bernie Bro narrative, that was an eye-opening thing for me back in 2016 as well during the debates. I remember Hillary Clinton, she said to Bernie, "You wouldn't be mentioning my Wall Street speeches if I was a man." And I
She really
remember
said that?
something of that nature. It was like that, and me and my mom looked at each other like, "What?"
Wow.
Like it
I didn't.
was, it was. I want to say it was
I
the
heard
first.
a lot of people make that argument about her, but I didn't know she ever said that.
She
Wow.
said it in the debate. I believe it was the third debate. It was the first one without Martin O'Malley, so it was like the third or fourth debate, I believe. And she said something to that nature, something like that. Like you wouldn't be asking about my Wall Street speeches or mentioning it if I was a man, or something of that nature.
Was it that he was wagging his finger or something? I'm really curious what it was.
And no, it was specifically
The
about
Wall
the
Street thing?
speeches.
Wow.
I
The
think so.
speeches? Yeah.
I have to go back and watch it, but it was something like specifically like that, and it was very mind blowing to me. And my mom was shocked by her saying that too, and it was just like, whoa, like okay, if you want to go there with that, go ahead. But I don't know if people are gonna buy into that one.
Right.
But Uh, but the Bernie Bro narrative, that was interesting because, well, I was a black guy who was, black. And they were saying all Bernie supporters are white and males. And I didn't know very many white males at the time that were supporting Bernie. All the people I knew in high school who supported Bernie, or most of the people who I knew who were supporting Bernie, were women. And that was, you know, I even went to the Bernie rally in Oklahoma City, and it was a pretty diverse group of people out there.
Right.
So yeah, and it was a very hurtful narrative because Bernie's policies are going to go a long way for helping people of color and women more so than it would, white males, and it's a very destructive narrative and
Right.
whatnot. But yeah.
I mean, it helps everyone, right? But like, it's disproportionately helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, all working people, right? But it disproportionately helps.
People of color, and women.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for
Thank you.
coming
Yeah.
on and taking time out of your busy schedule. It's been great
Sure.
having you on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Great.
Bye.
Bye.